The rain fell in heavy silver sheets over the crowded lower districts of Zircon Station, a trading hub where the poor and forgotten lived under the bright towers of the rich. Chun walked through the narrow alleys, his jacket pulled tight against the cold drizzle. Once a Terran engineer, now just a repairman fixing broken drones for spare credits, he had learned to survive in silence. But that night, as he passed the neon-lit food stalls, he saw something that stopped him cold. A woman, alien, thin as paper, holding a child close under her cloak. Her eyes glowed faint blue, a Zarkonian species known for their grace, now reduced to begging beside a steaming trash vent. The child coughed weakly, too hungry to even cry. Chun looked away at first. Everyone here had problems. Everyone suffered. But then he heard her whisper to the stall owner, "Please, just one loaf. I'll work. I'll clean." The vendor shook his head. "You have nothing worth trade." There was a pause, and then she said something that made Chun freeze. "Then take me. Just feed my child." Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from desperation. The vendor's eyes gleamed with cruel interest. "You? You're not worth much, alien. Maybe to the labor pits." He reached out to grab her arm. That's when Chun stepped forward. "Leave her alone." The crowd turned. A human defending a starving Zarkonian was rare, almost suicidal here. The vendor sneered, "Mind your business, Terran." She offered herself. Chun met the alien mother's eyes. There was shame and exhaustion there, but also something fierce love. "How much for the food?" Chun asked. The vendor laughed. "Too much for you, old man." Chun threw his credit chip on the counter. "Take it." It wasn't much, but enough for bread and soup. The vendor shrugged, greed winning over cruelty. "Fine, she's yours now anyway." Chun ignored him and crouched to her level. "I didn't buy you," he said softly. "I just bought dinner." She blinked in confusion. "Why? Help?" He hesitated, unsure himself. "Because no one helped me once." He handed the child the bread. The little one smiled faintly, blue eyes lighting for the first time. "What's your name?" Chun asked. "Esioyan," she whispered. "And this is Zex." "All right," Chun said, helping them stand. "Come on. You can rest at my place for the night." As they walked through the rain, Zex clinging to his mother's arm, Chun felt something stir inside him, a feeling he hadn't allowed for years. Not pity, not guilt. Hope. He didn't know that by helping one starving alien mother, he was about to challenge an entire system built on cruelty and change both their lives forever. Chun's home was small, a single metal room at the edge of Zircon Station's lower ring. The hum of broken generators echoed through the walls, and condensation dripped from the ceiling. He handed Seo Yan a worn blanket and set the heater to low power. "It's not much," he said, "but it's dry." She nodded, clutching her child close, her trembling hands revealing how long she had gone without warmth. Zex, the little one, peeked around the room, wide-eyed. "You live here alone?" he asked. Chun smiled faintly. "Yeah, easier that way." He poured them both cups of hot nutrient broth and sat opposite them, unsure what to say. Seo Yin's eyes never left her son, even as she thanked him softly. "You didn't have to help us," she murmured. "Humans don't usually care about our kind." Chun shrugged. "People forget I'm human sometimes, too." For a moment, silence filled the room, just the hum of the heater and the faint crackle of rain outside. Then she said quietly, "Back home, I was a healer. When the Zarkonian War ended, our world was cut off. No trade, no aid. I came here to find work, but no one would hire me." She brushed Zex's hair gently. "They said our kind spread sickness, lies." Chun looked away, anger flickering in his chest. I know how that feels, he said. After the Terran-Dravian War, half of us got blacklisted too. Wrong side of politics. Seo Yan studied him carefully, as if seeing something beyond the rough jacket and tired eyes. You've lost people, she said quietly. Chun nodded once. My wife. 2 years ago. That silenced them both. Zex fell asleep against his mother's lap, breathing softly. For the first time in a long while, Chun felt the weight of his solitude lift, replaced by something fragile shared pain. Hours later, he lay awake on the floor while Seo Yeon slept on the cot with her child. The faint glow of her blue skin illuminated the dim room like soft moonlight. He watched the ceiling and thought about what he had done. Tomorrow, he would have to face the station enforcers. Humans weren't supposed to shelter aliens, especially undocumented ones. But he couldn't turn her out. Not after hearing her story. You'll get me in trouble, lady, he whispered to the dark. Seo Yeon stirred slightly, murmuring something in her native tongue words he didn't understand, but they sounded like gratitude. Chun smiled faintly, closing his eyes. Somewhere deep in the metal corridors of Zircon Station, fate had already begun to move. By morning, both human and alien lives would collide with powers. That didn't care about kindness, and Chun would soon discover just how far he was willing to go to protect them. The morning light on Zircon Station wasn't sunlight, it was recycled glow from the upper decks, flickering through metal grates. Chun woke to the soft sound of Zex's laughter. The little boy was holding a small mechanical bird, one of Chun's broken repair projects that somehow still fluttered. It moves, the boy said, eyes wide. Seo Yeon smiled faintly, her tired face gentler now. He hasn't smiled in days, she whispered. Chun sat up, rubbing his neck. He's got good hands. Maybe he'll fix the next one. For a moment, the small room felt like a home. But that moment ended when a loud metallic knock echoed through the door. Chun froze. Station enforcers. A rough voice barked. Open up. Seo Yin's face went pale. They'll take us, she whispered. Chun motioned for silence and tapped the small panel under his table, revealing a crawl compartment. Hide there. Don't make a sound. She hesitated, eyes trembling, but obeyed, sliding inside with Zex, just as Chun opened the door. 2 armored enforcers stepped in, helmets shining. We've had reports, one said coldly. Human aiding an undocumented alien. That'd be a death mark, you know that? Chun kept his face calm. You see any aliens here? The other scanned the room with a handheld sensor. Chun's heart pounded. The heater's hum masked the faint breathing under the floor. The device beeped once, then died. Old tech in this district scrambles readings, Chun said quickly. You can check the roof if you want. The lead officer snorted. You're lucky we're in a good mood. Keep your head down, Terran. They left without another word. Chun waited until their footsteps faded, then opened the hatch. Seo Yeon crawled out, clutching Zex, both shaking. You risked your life, she said, voice breaking. Why? Chun didn't answer right away. He poured her a cup of water instead. Because no one else would, he finally said. And I'm tired of watching decent people be treated like cargo. Seo Yin's eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. You could have been arrested, she whispered. Chun gave a half-smile. Wouldn't be the first time. They both laughed softly tired, nervous laughter that eased the air between them. But outside, the enforcers weren't the only danger. From a nearby alley, a shadowed figure watched Chun's door through a cracked lens. His name was Jung Hoon, a broker who sold information to the station's labor syndicates. He spoke into his com, found the Zarkonian and her boy, and a human helping them. Send word to the pits. The line hissed with static before a cruel voice replied. Alive, the child fetches a high price. As the day faded, Chun worked on repairing a scavenged hover cart, unaware of the danger closing in. Co Yeon hummed softly to calm Zex. She looked toward Chun and whispered to herself, maybe? Not all humans are cruel. But deep down, fear still clung to her heart, because kindness was a fragile thing on Zircon Station, and the world had a habit of breaking what was pure. Night fell again over Zircon Station. The sky above choked with smoke and neon haze. Chun was working under the flickering light of his repair table, tightening a servo joint on a delivery drone, when the power suddenly cut out. The room plunged into darkness. His instincts flared. Stay quiet, he whispered. Seo Yan froze, clutching Zex close. A second later, the door burst open. 3 figures stormed in, faces hidden behind metal masks. There she is, one shouted. Chun grabbed the nearest tool, a welding torch, and swung it. Sparks flew, lighting the attacker's shapes. They were slavers, pit enforcers from the lower syndicate. One lunged, shoving Chun against the wall. Seo Yan screamed as 2 more grabbed her, trying to tear Zex from her arms. No, she cried, blue energy flickering faintly along her skin, a Zarkonian reflex, the last defense of her kind. Chun kicked the nearest man in the knee, snatched a shock rod, and drove it into another's chest. Electricity cracked through the small room. Run, he shouted. Seo Yeon hesitated, eyes wide with fear. I can't leave you. You can if you want him to live. Chun yelled, pointing at Zex. She nodded, tears in her eyes, and ran through the back exit with her child. Chun swung again, catching the last slaver across the jaw, but the first attacker hit him with a stun pulse. Pain exploded through his chest, knocking him down. He fell beside his workbench, vision spinning. Through the haze, he saw Jung-hoon the broker step into the light, smirking. You should have minded your own business, human. Chun gritted his teeth. Guess I'm bad at that. Jung-hoon knelt, scanning the room. The Zarkonian and the child where? Chun spat blood, saying nothing. Jung-hoon sneered and turned to leave. No matter. We'll find them. And when we do, she wished she'd sold herself to someone kinder. As he left, Chung crawled toward the desk, reaching for a hidden beacon. His vision blurred, but he managed to press the emergency code, an old Terran distress frequency no one was supposed to use anymore. Please, he muttered. Someone's still listening out there. Hours passed. Seo Yan hid with Zex in the abandoned transport tunnels, her cloak torn and blood on her arm. She could still hear the echo of Chun's voice telling her to run. He helped us, she whispered, holding her sleeping child. He'll be okay. But deep down, she knew Zircon Station never spared kind souls. Meanwhile, far above the lower decks, a small Terran patrol ship caught an old signal flickering through static. Captain Minjung, a comms officer said, You'll want to hear this. It's an old Confederacy distress ping source. Zircon Station. The captain frowned. That's impossible. Those codes haven't been used in years. He listened again. The voice was faint but determined. Civilian. Under attack? Code 9 to 7 HY. Min Jun's eyes narrowed. HFY protocol. Humanity first response. He turned to his crew. Plot a course to Zircon. Someone's in trouble. And somewhere in the shadows below, Chun struggled to stay awake, unaware that help was coming, and that Seo Yin's act of running had set a chain of events that would shake the whole station. When Chun woke again, his body felt like fire and ice at once. His ribs ached, his vision swam, and the smell of burnt circuitry filled the room. The power had returned, faint blue light flickering over broken furniture. He tried to move, but his side screamed in pain. Then a low hum cut through the silence, the sound of a dropship descending outside. He dragged himself to the door, blinking through the light. Terran peacekeeper armor gleamed in the rain. Human identified, a voice called. Chen Liu, response code 9 to 7 HY received. The figure stepped closer. Removing his helmet, it was Captain Min Jun, younger than Chun had expected, eyes sharp but kind. You picked one hell of a place to send a distress call, Min Jun said. Chun coughed, forcing a smile. Guess it still works. The captain helped him stand. You said civilians were in danger? Chun nodded weakly. Zarkonian woman and her kid. They're being hunted. Labor syndicates after them. Min Jun's face hardened. Then we'll end this. Meanwhile, in the lower tunnels, Co Yan was cornered. Syndicate slavers had found her trail. Yung Hoon led them with a torch in hand, shouting orders. Take the child alive. Zex clung to his mother's arm, terrified. She hid him behind a pipe and stepped into the open, trembling but defiant. Blue light shimmered faintly under her skin. If you want him, she said, you'll have to go through me. Yung Hoon sneered. Gladly. Before he could move, a voice echoed from the shadows. How about through me instead? A drone beam cut through the dark, knocking Yung Hoon off his feet. Chun limped forward, bloodied but alive, supported by Min Jun's soldiers. You again? Yung Hoon spat. Chun raised the shock rod, its charge flaring bright. You people never learn. The fight was short but brutal. The slavers were trained for cruelty, not for organized fire. Min Jun's squad moved like ghosts, clearing the tunnels with stun rounds. Seo Yan shielded Zex as explosions echoed around them. When the smoke settled, Yung Hoon tried to crawl away, but Chun caught his collar. You sold people like parts, Chun said coldly. Now you'll pay like one. He slammed the man against the wall and let the enforcers drag him away. Seo Yan rushed forward, tears streaking her face. You came back, she whispered. Chun winced, breathing hard. I said you'd be safe, didn't I? She pressed her forehead to his, Zarkonian style. You kept your word. Min Jun stepped closer, lowering his weapon. The Confederacy's opening new refugee protocols, he said. You and your child have a place safe, clean, no debts. Seo Yan looked at Chun. And you? Chun smiled faintly. I'll go too. Someone needs to make sure you don't sell yourself again. For the first time, she laughed a real laugh, soft and alive. Days later, Zircon Station buzzed with rumors. A human had defied the syndicate. A Zarkonian mother and her child had been freed. And the Terran code, HFY, had been activated after decades of silence. It stood for humanity, for you. On the transport ship bound for the Confederacy Corps, Zex sat between them, holding both their hands. Mama, he said sleepily, are we safe now? Seo Yan kissed his forehead. Yes, my heart. Because someone chose kindness instead of power. Chun looked out the viewport, where the stars stretched like silver rivers. Maybe that's what makes us human, he murmured. Not where we're from, but what we choose to save. And as the ship jumped to light speed, the glow of Zircon faded behind them, its darkness left. One small light brighter than ever, the simple act of mercy that had changed 3 lives. And maybe, one day, the whole galaxy. Weeks later, the stars beyond Zircon Station gave way to soft blue skies over Terra Nova 1 of the new sanctuary colonies. Chun stood on the platform overlooking the valley, the air crisp and clean for the first time in years. Below, vast refugee domes shimmered like pearls, filled with aliens of every kind rebuilding their lives. Seo Yan and Zex walked beside him, their steps slow, careful. The child ran ahead, chasing a silver bird drone that Chun had rebuilt from the broken one he'd given him back on Zircon. "You fixed it." Zex laughed, his voice echoing through the field. Chun smiled faintly, promised him it would fly again. S.O.Yun turned to him. "You keep your promises, Chun-Liu, even the impossible ones." He shrugged, embarrassed. "Guess I got tired of breaking them." She studied him for a moment, the human who had risked everything without asking for anything back. "You could have left us," she said softly. "You could have walked away that night." Chun looked out toward the horizon. "Maybe, but the universe already has enough people who walk away." They spent the next days helping rebuild the medical station. Seo Yan's healing skills found purpose again, while Chun repaired old machines for the camp. He watched her laugh with other refugees, her color returning, her voice strong again. Something warm stirred in his chest every time she looked his way. At night, they would sit outside the dome, watching the twin moons rise over the hills. Zex would fall asleep between them, wrapped in Seo Yan's cloak, the repaired drone perched beside him. "He'll never forget you," she said one night. "You gave him a future." Chun shook his head. "You gave him hope. I just gave him a chance to see it." Then one morning, a message came from Captain Min Jun. Confederacy Council approves new HFY directive, a humanitarian policy modeled after Chun's rescue report. Every station, every colony would now have safe corridors for displaced aliens, enforced by Terran patrols. Seo Yan read it aloud, tears filling her eyes. "They named it after your distress code," she whispered. Chun chuckled quietly. "Guess HFY finally means something again." Later, as the sun set, Seo Yan stood by the river's edge, wind weaving through her silver-blue hair. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now?" Chun said. "We live." She smiled a real, free smile and took his hand. "Together?" He squeezed her fingers gently. "If you'll have me." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Then you're stuck with us." Zex came running up, holding the glowing drone high. "Look, Mama, look! It's flying higher." They both watched as the little machine climbed toward the orange sky, wings catching the light. Seo Yun's voice softened. "Once, I sold myself to keep him alive. Now he flies free." Chun looked at her and said quietly, "And you do too." As twilight fell, the stars blinked awake, each one a story of survival, kindness, and choice. Somewhere out there, Zircon Station still turned in darkness, but now the Confederacy watched over it. A single act of compassion had started a chain reaction across worlds. For Chun, Seo Yan, and Zex, it was no longer about survival, it was about belonging. Humanity had not just saved them. It had remembered what it truly meant to be human. And as the night deepened, their small home by the river glowed like a beacon in the valley, a reminder that in a galaxy built on power and fear, sometimes one heart choosing love could rewrite the fate of stars.